if you have any lotion or kind of like body butter or body cream that you want to use, I definitely recommend using a little bit of lotion because we are going to be massaging the feet, and if you don't, it doesn't feel so great when your skin is tugging on skin. So take a little bit of lotion, and we'll start with one foot. So I'm going to start with my right foot, and I'm going to cross my right foot over my left, keeping my left foot kind of relaxed out. Now you could sit any number of ways. You could cross the ankles and bring your foot up over the thigh. It's a nice stretch through that hip, but it's not accessible to all of us. So just find a comfortable position where you can have your foot kind of easily accessible, and you can get a good view of the sole of the foot and the toes, and then go ahead and start to put that lotion maybe on those calloused areas that you noticed earlier. So particularly the big toe, the heel, and then kind of make sure that lotion gets all over the foot. And as you are here, the first massage technique is really just kind of warming up the entire foot. So you can just take your two hands and start to massage your foot. No special tips or tricks here. No any detailed cues. You just start rubbing that lotion all over your foot, right? And start to think about how much you use your foot every day, right? Everything we're using our feet. Walking, even if we don't have a very vigorous fitness practice, we're walking, we're standing, we're using our feet when we're lifting up to reach something on the highest shelf. Lots of opportunities for our foot to work throughout the day. And so even if you're just doing these techniques to improve your daily life, I think you'll get a lot of return for this practice. Alrighty, so now that you have that lotion distributed all over your foot, the first technique I'm going to have you do is called toe pulls. So you'll literally just take your fingers and kind of pull down the length of each toe. Now I'm not tugging really hard, I'm just kind of running my thumb and like my pointer finger and my middle finger down the length of the toe, and then kind of giving it a little pinch at the nail. And so what you're doing is you're actually kind of pulling that circulation down, pulling that blood flow down, and that little pinch, you're starting to improve your circulation in your toes, and you can actually see the change in that blood flow when you give it a little pinch, right? It might start to get a little red or pink, and then release, maybe even get a little white or yellow. And once you've done each toe, all the way down to your pinky toe, go ahead and go back up to your big toe. And we'll do that with all of our techniques. We'll kind of fan from big toe to pinky toe, and then back up. And once you've done those little toe pulls, then we're gonna do twists with our toes. And I like to think of the little piggy game that you play with little kids, right? It's that same technique where you're gonna take your big toe and start to twist and rotate it back and forth. And then you do your second toe, your third toe, and so on until you get to that baby toe. And then when you get to your baby toe, you're gonna go on back up. And you can take your time here, do a couple twists. You have a lot of mobility in your feet, but because of the shoes that we wear, because of some of our kind of habits that we fall into, we don't always utilize the full mobility of our feet. So what we are doing here, just starting to wake up our toes, reminding our toes that they have a lot of range of motion. The next thing I'm gonna have you do is toe splits. So think about your regular leg splits, right? You have your center splits and you have your side splits. We're gonna do our center splits with our toes. So you're gonna take your big toe and your second toe into your fingers of either hand, and you're actually going to stretch them apart. Now this feels a little uncomfortable if you're not used to doing it. It can kind of make the skin in between the toes a little tight. So again, we're not going for anything that is painful, but if it is a new sensation, I just want you to kind of breathe through it. And once you've gone toe splits between that big and second toe, then you can move on to your second and your third toe. And you'll kind of go like this with your toes, right? and then you can move on to the next set. So just focusing on your toes right now. We're going to do this same thing when we go down to our metatarsal heads. Just kind of working from like the crease of where your toes meet your feet on up. And when you get to that baby toe, then I want you to go back up, work your way fanning back up towards your big toe. Perfect. So that was our center splits, right? We're going like this with our toes. Now you're going to go like this with your toes. You're actually going to spread your toes apart and manipulate them with your fingers. So I'm going to take my first and my second toe, and I'm going to stretch them apart nice and wide. Again, here is where we want to be nice to ourselves, be gentle. Maybe take a moment to kind of rub maybe some lotion on those little bits of skin in between the toes. And you're going to stretch apart each toe, making your way all the way down to the baby toe, and then back up. And the first couple times you do this, it's going to feel really weird. A lot of what we're doing today, if you're not used to doing them, it's going to feel weird. That's okay. You just smile through it. We're just playing with our feet. I'm going to ask you during our active warm-up to actually do this without your hands and to tell your feet to really spread and stretch apart. And you'll notice how kind of limited our range of motion can be, right? With your fingers actually manipulating your feet, you can go pretty wide. But if you were to release your hands and look down at your feet and try to really spread open those toes, we don't get the same range as we do if we're pulling on them with our fingers, right? Like for me, my big toe and my second toe get a lot of space, but like that third and fourth toe, they hardly move apart. So take a moment to see for yourself, right? Do a little foot assessment. If you're really trying to spread out your toes nice and wide, where do you get the most space? Alrighty, you can kind of rub it out. Next thing we're going to do, you're going to take your fingertips and put them in between each toes. So you don't have to thread your whole fingers in between your toes. That can be quite painful if we're not used to that sensation. All I want you to do is place your fingertip of your pinky right in between your fourth and your fifth toe, and then move on through there. So just the fingertips in between those toes, and then I want you to press down. We're going to stay here for a little bit. You're going to find your breath. You're going to remind yourself that it is just a sensation. It is not necessarily anything negative. It just feels a little different, right? Be careful with your nails if you got long nails. Make sure you're not digging your nails into yourself. And then if you can, start to ease a little bit more of your finger in between those toes. So you get to go as far as feels comfortable today. You can stay with your fingertips and then try to wiggle your toes. And then try to wiggle your fingers. And then see if you can go a little bit further. We're only going to stay here for about 3 more breaths. Breathing through it. You may get some really sharp sensations in between certain toes. You can relax and let go of any gripping sensations with your breath. And then maybe eventually as you work through this practice, you get to the point where you can actually interlace your fingers with your toes. Feels kind of good to hold hands with your feet. And maybe even, you don't have to do it today, but I had one Pilates instructor who actually used to interlace her toes together. Like you would interlace your hands, she'd put each of her toes in between her other toes and make her toes kind of hold hands. Looks really cool. I haven't been able to do it yet. So go ahead and release your fingers out from in between your toes. Give them a nice little wiggle. And then remember that kind of toe split we did before. We're going to do that with our metatarsal heads. So you're going to hold onto the base, right where the ball of your foot and your toes meet. You're going to hold onto the base of the big toe and the base of the second toe and manipulate it so that it goes back and forth, little shifts. And here's where you start to realize just how much mobility your foot has the potential for. So make your way down in between each toes, work in those metatarsal heads. You have 26 different bones in each foot. That is an incredible amount of bones. Within that, there's like even more. There's 30, I have my little cheat notes to the side. There's 33 joints in addition to those 26 bones. So just think about how much articulation that is there, the potential is there for. Alrighty, so eventually you've made your way back up to your big toe. And then you can release. Next thing we're gonna do, we're moving on up to the arch of the foot. So I want you to take your fingertips and rake them across the arch of your foot. You can go from the ball of your foot to your heel, and you can go up from your heel to the ball of your foot. I like to think of kind of a Zen garden here, so I'm like tracing different patterns in a Zen garden. If that feels okay and you're like, you know what, I could have a little more pressure, take your thumbs, because you can dig a little bit deeper and make these long raking lines with your thumbs. And even more, you can take a fist and use the knuckles of that fist and rake them like you're raking a pattern in that Zen garden. So I'll give you a second to do this a few times. Try to go around different areas of your arches. So you have that outer arch, you have your inner arch, you have another little arch like right at your heel. See if you can get all of those different points. And maybe just one more here. And then you can go ahead and release. Now we're going to come on up to where our ankle is. You have that bony process of your ankle, and then you have that Achilles tendon that you can actually kind of pinch. So I want you to take your forefinger and your thumb and hold on to that area and actually give it a little pinch, a gentle pinch, right? All of this is self-love. It's not meant to be anything aggressive. So a little gentle pinch. And then from there, you can start to hold on to your ankle with one hand clasped over, other hand clasped over, and you're going to do a technique that we call the tube sock. So think about like long socks that'll go up your calf, and you're going to wring your hands out and create a little bit of friction there. So it's almost like your own leg warmers that you are creating for yourself. This one's really nice to do before running or hiking, or even just first thing in the morning, especially if we have a tendency to kind of roll our ankles, right? Just that little bit of friction, we can build up some heat there. And then go ahead and start to go further up your calf and think about where your Achilles tendon branches out into the rest of your calf. So remember that pinching sensation from before. You can bring up that pinching sensation so that you're working your way all the way up to your calf muscle, to like that meaty part of your soleus. So this is the last massage technique that I have for you. I want you to lengthen out your legs, take a look at either foot, and just kind of notice the differences between your right and your left, right? If you were on the right side like me, your right side is maybe nice and like jello-y, doughy, probably feels a lot more softer and relaxed than your left side.